Hello my friend, today we are going to talk about the difference between two ways of declaring variables, okay? So we have let and the var keyword that we can use to declare variable. That one we know already, right? But this one is the one that is secure, okay? This one behaves like most people would want it to behave. And to be honest, this is pretty advanced topic, but almost always you need to use just the let variable. If you don't want to, go on and find out why, then you can just skip this lesson and just use let variable in most cases, okay? However, if you want to understand it deeply, if you want to, be like, okay, I know why we should use let, and I want to know what is hoisting because you are interested in the language, then please keep watching the lecture. So let's create a variable, let's call it age, and let's assign to it form. And we can do it what? With using the var or the let keyword. Let there be a variable. That's how you can remember how to use it. Let there be a variable, right? And well, what's the difference? Let's create this inside a block like this. If something is true, then let's create age using the let keyword. And now let's try to access age this way. What will happen? As you can see, we have got now error. Age is not defined. It means that let variables are destroyed after the block that it was created in is finished. So the start is here, the finish is here, and this thing died, okay? You can't access it anymore. However, when you use the variable, like this, as you can see, you can still access it. And this is pretty big difference because if you use let, you free memory instantly after that variable is not needed anymore, right? Because, well, imagine that we are doing some operations here, right? There are many operations on age, and then we don't need it anymore. It was only useful in this particular scope. And so why do we need to keep it in memory? It's not good idea, right? Notice that JavaScript is pretty weird. I mean, it's not weird because, well, anything run in JavaScript is run in your web browser. So these variables are still, you can access them anytime you want until somebody close your page. So if you have got here like 5,000 variables created using the var keyword, you are, taking the place of memory of somebody. So that's not a good idea, right? To use the var keyword in situations like this. It's better to use the let keyword because then the memory release is immediately after the block, right? So when it's finished, it's done. And the second difference is that, well, let's try to access age here, right? When you use the var keyword, you will notice that we can access it and we got the undefined message, right? Undefined. We can access it even if the script hasn't invoked these instructions yet. And this thing is called hoisting, okay? Hoisting is a mechanism that allows you variables to be used before they are declared, right? So it's declared here, but we use it anyway here. And they are like hoisted to the top of the program, right? So in our case, we declared it here and it was hoisted to the top of the program and we used it here. And well, it's undefined. However, you can access it and this is bad. Well, you might be like, why is it bad? Imagine that we have got here again lots of code, right? Like something like this. And now imagine that you have got here some comparison. You want to check if age is equal to something. And you probably think that this age exists here, right? Probably. But you are not sure. Because, well, it's defined somewhere in your program. And when you access something like this and you make a comparison, like if age is, for example, equal to 4, and you're gonna do something if it's true, right? True. As you can see, nothing happened, even though age is equal to 4. And you might be wondering, why is it not working? And in order to debug it, probably you would, print what is age here, right? You will do something like print age and you will see, oh, it's undefined. So it's hard to debug a code like this. I think code should just inform you instantly that something is wrong. You did access something that doesn't exist, right? Like this. As you can see now, we have age is not defined. You can't access something that is not defined. You have got information instantly, right? Hey, it doesn't work, bro. That's why let is better in this case, right? Because let is not hoisting the variable that it's declared using the let keyword, right? So it means that variable is only accessible after it has been declared. So here, right? After, that's all. Now let's talk about redeclaration. Well, when we do something like let there be variable that is called b, and let's assign to it 10. And then we want to, change the value of this thing. We can't now write something like let there be b, and let's assign to it 20. As you can see, we have got here information, cannot redeclare block scoped variable. And here we have also information that you are trying to redeclare something that you can't do, right? In order to change the value above, you need to just change it. You can't redeclare it. If you use the var keyword, well, you can, do things like this as many times as you want. And in a small program like this, well, to be honest, this is not particular problem, right? Let's comment this. This is not a problem, right? In this small program like this, because you can see instantly that you are just changing the value. But again, when the program is big, very big, and imagine that some variables names are pretty often used, like for example name, number, like for example age, right? Like for example sample, and so on, right? So there are some names that are often used, and imagine that there is a number in your code, and this code is pretty important, right? And you only change it through some kind of function, and that's all. However, if you use the var declaration type, you can just, assign to it another value, like for example 100, and you've just changed the value to something new, and imagine that this number was used in calculating something important. So your program is not working now like it should. And you would do it because there are so many lines of code, right? As I said, imagine there are so many lines of code and you don't know if there is a variable called number. And you are just, okay, I'm gonna create a number now. Let's assign to it 100 at 1000. I'm now doing some calculation with it. But you don't know there is already number here, right? And you just crashed entire project, right? And you might be like, hey, but I am writing the code on my own. I have good memory. Really, when you come back to your project after 6 months or 1 year, you will see that you don't remember everything. That's the first thing. And the second thing, you need to understand that you're gonna work with other people in future, that's for sure. And they might make an error, or you might make an error in a big code like this. When you use you redeclare the variable like this. So that's why you should use the let in case of declarations, because, well, you can't redeclare it, right? So you are safe now. So that's why let was introduced in JavaScript later. And you might be like, Arkadiusz, could you tell me if there is a reason to use var keyword? Yes, there is a reason. If you understand how everything works, why not? Look, notice something like that. Let's create a for loop. like for example, like this. Let there be variable like I, and when I is lower than 10, then I++. Let's create the sum variable and let's assign it to 0, and then we gonna do something like, let's increase sum by 5 each time the loop is run. And then we want to alert the sum after it's finished, right? As you can see, it's 50 and it's okay. We calculated it, everything is okay. But can I access I now? Of course not, because, well, it's block scope, so it's gonna die after the closing curly bracket. If you use the var keyword here, you will notice that we can access it. So we know that this loop was run 10 times. If we don't need this information, well, it's of course better to use let, because we freed the memory, right? We instantly freed the memory when the variable I died here, right? However, what if I wanted to do something like that? If, for example, sum is equal to 15, I want to break the loop, right? Okay, that's all that I want to count, but I want to know when it happened, after how many iterations it happened. So if we use the var keyword, oh, okay, 3. I know that it finished after 3 runs, right? However, if we use the let keyword, okay, there we have a problem. We will need to you need to create another variable that will count how many times loop was run. That's, I don't think it's a good idea, because it makes your code less readable, right? So if you know what you are doing, then do it. It's not like there is a new feature like let keyword and let's use it always, right? Almost always. Okay, and this next thing is that you have probably noticed that I wrote here that the var keyword has range to function and memory release after leaving the function. You might be like, hey, but we haven't used any function here. Okay, let's use the function then. Function test, and let's create here. Let's maybe take all these things under the comment so it won't affect what we see, right? And so we have got here a function test, and let's create here a variable that we will call, for example, number, and we'll assign to it 5, right? And notice that this variable is only gonna be visible in this function, which means that you can't access it here, right? As you can see, number is not defined. It's also not gonna be, you can't access this after the function, right? So the scope is to the function. Of course, if you create inside, for example, something what we did before, so for example, a block scope like this, you can access the number in the closest function. The hoisting takes the variable to the closest function. So this we can take under the command, and we're gonna see 5, right? When we invoke our function, of course. Let's invoke it. And as you can see, it's undefined. Sorry, it's undefined, not 5, because, well, we assigned value later, right? We can access it, but we don't know what value is there yet. If you use the let, of course, we're gonna get an error. So var keyword makes your variable only accessible in the function scope, okay? So you might be wondering why here, when we did it here, right, in the global scope, we could access it anyway here, because when we could do something like that here, we are really in a global function, okay, in the global program, and that's how you can remember it. That's all the lesson. Thank you very much. And as always, remember, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. I am always here to support you guys.